but that with the movie release schedule this year obliterated by the pandemic, this would be an easier list to make than my top 10 TV shows of 2020. And it was a little bit easier, but it wasn't as easy as I had anticipated. I still had to make some hard choices. And I'm curious to hear your own list of the top 10 movies of 2020 down below. You know, it's going to be a little tough this year because the Oscars are delayed and therefore they've also pushed back the deadline. So it won't be a full calendar year for films that are eligible for awards consideration in 2021, which is, again, as I said, going to make it a little confusing. But just so you know, as far as my list goes, I have yet to see The Father. I'm very frustrated about that. I'm working on getting a screener, but that doesn't come out in public till February, but it will be in contention for this year's Oscars. And I haven't gotten a chance to watch The Sound of Metal yet either, but I've seen everything else, although I also didn't see Promising Young Woman or Pieces of a Woman. So those are the awards contenders I haven't seen yet. And then also, while I really enjoyed Hamilton and Black is King, as you know from my reviews, I wouldn't call those, films. And the Academy agrees with me, Ree Hilton. It's not eligible for an Oscar. I feel that is a filmed stage performance. It is not a movie adaptation of Hamilton. It's literally a filmed version of the stage performance. So I don't think that's a movie. I hope that someday they do make it a full, proper movie. They certainly paid enough for it. They might as well squeeze out everything they can get. Disney did. And then with Black is King, that was a Michael Jackson level music video event, but it still wasn't a movie. But again, loved both of those, but I just don't think that they're movies. All right, finally, before we get started, I'd like to point out that Netflix really owned 2020 movies, not just as largely the only game in town thanks to the pandemic, but they really stepped up and released some fantastic movies to take full advantage of the opportunity. And speaking of taking advantage of the opportunity, two of these films that are quite high up on my list from Netflix were originally supposed to be theatrical releases from other studios, but were sold to Netflix because of the pandemic. Interesting indeed. And Pixar, wow, just when I think I'm out, they pull me back in. Both their movies are on my list this year. All right, I never thought that would happen. All right, it might be also because of a lack of competition, but these films are both very, very good. All right, so number 10 is Mank. Now, I know that this movie is hard to sit through, and the third act is so bad that it probably KOs its best picture and best screenplay chances. But Mank so lovingly and flawlessly recreates classic cinema that I have to tip my hat to it. And I think that for that reason, David Fincher still has a shot at Best Director. That and that he's never won before. You know how political the awards are. It also makes some really good points about how the more things change, the more they stay the same, especially if we refuse to recognize it and do nothing about it. It's really a gorgeous film, too, though. If you're a Turner Classic Movies fan, and everyone, Hollywood loves itself. Hollywood loves itself. So it's just incredible what David Fincher accomplished here. So, just from the recreating classic film alone. Don't underestimate how much that's going to help him. And I loved it. All right, number 9, The Gentleman. Yeah, it made it to my list. I love underdogs, as you know. And here, there's a bunch of them in front of and behind the camera, proving they've still got it, damn it. Sure, no one's doing anything new here besides Hugh Grant, who has brilliantly reinvented himself, reviving his career. I love Hugh Grant more than ever. It's a little bit like what Jude Law did, although Hugh Grant has gone even further than Jude Law, in my opinion. But everyone here is doing what they do best, and they're doing their best at their best. It's just a really fun movie, which I, in fact, saw twice within just the span of a few days. Even Charlie Hunnam. I finally got Charlie Hunnam. I was like, oh, hey, he is talented. I see why you keep trying to use him, Guy Ritchie. All right, number 8, The Invisible Man. I told you Upgrade was good. I was caught off guard by Upgrade. I never even got the chance to review it. I saw it late in its release, and I didn't expect anything. And I was like, oh my God, this is so good. Lee Whannell is a talent to watch. And now that you've seen Invisible Man, you feel that way too. It's an amazing film. He didn't even follow the source material at all. In fact, you can go and see the original Invisible Man, which I highly recommend you do. It was ahead of its time. And also, you know what? Come to think of it, Lee Whannell kind of did, in some ways, be faithful to the source material, and that both films were so impressive with what they could pull off VFX-wise, even though they were made for so little money. The Invisible Man, the original Invisible Man, because that was just the best they could do at that time with visual effects. And then this one, because this was a small movie and Universal was tired of losing a lot of money on their trying to redo their horror movies. But Lee Wanell, he did a fantastic job. He had an interesting twist on the whole idea, and he managed to deliver an auteur film for cheap. I call it budget Hitchcock. A great idea. And it was just so clever. It was like DIY filmmaking that you could enjoy while you watch the film. You're like, how'd you do that? That was incredible. It was so good. It was a little bit like Upgrade, where they, Logan Marshall Green was trained by Cirque du Soleil to do a lot of the VFX, himself. It was so cool. Everyone was mighty impressed, including Universal, who has given Lee Wanell the go-ahead to reinvent the Wolfman next with Ryan Gosling. Number 7, Extraction. Now here, I had a real Sophie's choice between 2 Netflix action films with big Hollywood stars, Extraction and The Old Guard. Now, I went with Extraction, and I gotta say, I penalized The Old Guard a bit, and I don't know how fair this is, but I read the source material, and I don't think they adapted it well enough. I think that there was a lot more there. Even though I really enjoyed the film, I thought that they left a lot. They didn't put it out all on the table. Also, I thought their action sequences weren't as good. And Extraction had amazing action sequences. So I loved Extraction. I thought Chris Hemsworth did a great job. I thought it was great for the Russo brothers to have a hit outside of Marvel. That's hard to do for anybody. But really, I think the star here is Sam Hargrave, the Marvel stuntman, also from Marvel, who has upgraded to director like John Wick's David Leitch and Chad Stahelski before him. I think the action and directing in Extraction are indeed as good as the original John Wick. So I can't wait for Extraction 2 and whatever else Hargrave does next as he follows down the same path and hopefully someday deliver something as good as John Wick 3. Oh, so good. All right, number 6, The Prom. I expected to hate this movie. I thought it would be like, nails on a chalkboard. But instead, I thought it was an utter delight. A fantastic stage adaptation, which is faithful to the original musical while still elevating it. Oh my God, Ryan Murphy's Prom feels like a Broadway musical, but also a movie. It's so good. His all-star cast delivers as you would expect. Meryl Streep, you're just so good, I can't believe it. Every time. But they didn't overshadow a really beautiful message and important representation. So you had all that star power, but it was really well managed by Ryan Murphy. Everyone deserves to go to prom indeed, and to do all the other important stuff in life by extension. That's the point of the movie. And I also really liked the commentary on the realities of working in the theater. Really great movie. It's just a party. It was so fun to watch. I got that soundtrack too. All right, I got a lot of soundtracks this year. Number 5, thank you Apple Music, $9.99 a month, and I just get to download whatever I want. Number 5, Onward. As I said, the first of 2 of the Pixar movies that released this year on my list. I didn't expect to enjoy Onward either. Nobody did, because it had a horrible ad campaign. They did not know how to advertise this movie. But when we got to the theater, or streamed it on Disney Plus, because it came out right when the pandemic started. I, in fact, saw it twice in theaters. Once at the press screening, and then I ran out and saw it as soon as it came out because I loved it so much. I wanted to have that theatrical experience again. I do miss the movie theater. So we'll get there. We'll get back there. But when we actually sat down and watched this movie, we discovered a surprisingly grounded fantasy. How's that for, pulling something off? That has a beautiful message about siblings. I loved that. It did make me cry real bad, but I felt that it earned it. Also, Ian ends up being a total badass wizard. That final fight was amazing! And we need a sequel here so we can see how he levels up. I bought the spell book in this movie. They actually had a real-life spell book, and I bought it because I was so enamored with Ian as a wizard. This is also peak Tom Holland and Chris Pratt doing what they do best. Now, number 4, Enola Holmes. This, by the way, is one of the Netflix movies that was supposed to be released theatrically, in this case by Warner Brothers. But speaking of people doing what they do best, every single actor in this movie is perfectly cast. And using the same director as Fleabag and Killing Eve to bring Enola Holmes to life, who can surprisingly make a good family film. You wouldn't think someone who makes Fleabag or Killing Eve, which are not family shows, could do this, but they did. He did. I mean, it seems that Millie Bobby Brown is as good a producer as she is an actress, and that's impressive. We need a sequel here, too, with more scenes of Henry Cavill as Sherlock Holmes, please. He was fantastic. Number 3, Da 5 Bloods. Oh, I loved this movie. Everyone says Chadwick Boseman is going to win Best Supporting Actor for Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. He's going to win. The question is just for what film. And I guess it's what film Netflix decides to push, and it seems that that's the one they're pushing. But I really feel that this is the performance to honor him for. I think it just fits perfectly with his legacy and fits very well with the very sad, posthumous circumstances. He's an incredible actor. He definitely deserves the recognition, but I think it would fit perfectly. I'd be curious, what do you think he deserves to win for? He's going to win. I think it should be this. Now, everyone in this film delivers a stellar performance, and it's you have talent that's been around for a while, talent that's rediscovered here, and up and coming talent. Not just Chadwick Boseman, but Jonathan Majors as well, who I have been singing his praises since he literally first popped up on the screen in Hostiles. But anyway, it's exhilarating to also see Spike Lee go full Tarantino after dabbling in Tarantinoism with Black Klansman. The cinematography on this film is also stunning. It really felt while I was watching it that I was watching something that was meant to be seen on the big screen, even though I was watching it on my television. And Spike Lee, he was great. He felt bad people couldn't see his movie in theaters, but he understood, and he said he wouldn't want anyone to risk their safety for his film. What a great guy. Da 5 Bloods also has some powerful and fresh, I think that's very important, fresh messages about war, civil rights, lost chances, and profound regret and guilt. What a beautiful movie. I love that movie. If you haven't seen it, you really should go back and see it. I feel bad it didn't get the attention at the time that I feel it deserved. Number 2, The Trial of the Chicago 7. This is the other movie that Netflix got that was supposed to be released theatrically, this one by Paramount. They love to sell stuff to Netflix. And now also Amazon. Paramount's like, forget it, sell it. Now, Aaron Sorkin is not a good director, but he is such a good writer. He's like one of the premier writers of all time. And he also casts such amazing actors. And to be fair, I guess directs them pretty well. They might be director proof though. But this movie, because of the acting and the writing, rises above his inability to direct. I wouldn't say he's a bad director. It just doesn't really add anything as I think another director would have. But this is not only a very well-written and acted film, but it's a very timely film. Released during our current Black Lives Matter protests, The Trial of the Chicago 7 uses the anti-Vietnam protests as a parallel to highlight the importance of leadership for these movements, why people protest, what it accomplishes, and the shady tactics that local governments and police are still using to this day to deal with protesters. It not only highlights them, but explains them, the reasoning behind them, why that tactic is used. It's really important stuff. Also, Frank Langella's Judge is the best movie villain since Nurse Ratched. But the difference is he was a real person who really did these horrible, horrible things. Yahya Abdul-Mateen II, whose career is skyrocketing. I've loved him since The Get Down. I was like, watch that guy. And we've been watching him, boy. But he has a small role here, but it could not be more powerful. Number 1, Soul. Not only is Soul a beautiful, meaningful film, but it's an ambitious one as well. The way Pixar used to be ambitious, before they got all wrapped up in getting the credit for being ambitious and, kind of forgetting about the act itself. I think they were doing like cheap ambition, but this is just truly ambitious. Soul focuses on characters of color, from Joe Gardner and his family to his students to his community. But the story at the same time is it is colorblind. It's not tokenism, which I think is really, really important. And the film is also ambitious visually, so ambitious visually. But it also with its soundtrack. I got this soundtrack too. I also got the Wonder Woman 1984 soundtrack, which I think is phenomenal. But Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross's techno score is so good, but also Jon Batiste's jazz. I don't love jazz, but I appreciate what he accomplishes here. Many of you have pointed out to me who are jazz fans that he not only incorporates the classics, but builds on them with the work that he does here, Jon Batiste. And for once, Pixar went for the better message instead of the gut punch. Like Onward still had the gut punch. I loved Onward, but that's why Soul is higher up on the list. It was beautiful, and it didn't rip out my heart and stomp on it. It wasn't necessary. I cried, but they were tears of joy. All right, so those are my top 10 movies of 2020. I'm very excited to hear your own lists down below. Share your thoughts, subscribe today, and of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.